and welcome to Perks of Being a Widow. Spoiler, there are none. My name is Avalon, and today I speak with Jerrica, who lost her husband just 2 weeks after the birth of their son. We talk quite a bit about the experience of becoming a mother at the same time as becoming a widow and how that has affected her grief journey. We also talk about her company's bereavement policy and what she's been doing to help modify that in her workspace. I hope there's something in this for you, and please enjoy. Awesome. So, Jerrica, tell me about your husband.
Oh, that I love him so much, and I think, like they say, we always will. So, I'll start off with that. But his name is Bryce Gordon, and he is an incredible human being. And my grandma is also a widow. Probably the only widow that I know is my grandmother, who is 84 years old. That's what her and I shared at the service, was that we were the two widows there. So put that into context, right? 37 and 84. She reminded me, I think, of, I don't want to say the reason he passed, right? But mine and Bryce's lifestyle and philosophy was that we wanted to live each day, and we definitely did that. And I remember when he had first got diagnosed with cancer, that's how he passed, with stage 4 melanoma cancer. No one in his family had it, and there was nothing that he could have done better or different to have prevented that. But yeah, so long story short, he passed from melanoma, and he was an airline pilot. He dreamt of being an airline pilot for years, since he was 9 years old. And our son, Eli Maverick, he is a pilot at age 1 already. Like, he has it down. So that's really beautiful. But back to our story. Sorry, I digress. Okay, so basically, my husband and I, we met in college. We were college sweethearts. We met at a flight school. I wanted to be a pilot. He was already being a pilot. I always tease and say that it's easier to marry the pilot than to become one. So that was really exciting. But at the end of the day, we both just had this passion for aviation, and that was kind of just like our thing. So that was really cool. And what that really allowed us to do was travel the world and see so many sights and do so many things. And I never knew how I was going to travel, but I knew, like, at a young age, that was something I really wanted to do, which was travel the world and just experience that with somebody. And so I happened to marry a pilot, and it was awesome. And then once we got married, his career took us to Denver. And so he started to build up his flight hours working for a regional airline. And then after working for a regional airline, he ended up becoming a captain for Frontier Airlines. And so that was really exciting. And then we moved to Orlando area because we had the opportunity to upgrade to captain. And so we always dreamt of living on the beach, and we made that dream a reality. And so because he was only driving to the airport like twice a week and then leaving the car there and commuting in the air instead of via car, then we were able to live a little bit away from the airport and just live by the beach. So we would always call it early retirement, and we love where we live in a little small town on the Space Coast. And so we get to see all the rocket launches. And I always tease him because we moved around the time that rockets started to become active again with SpaceX and all of the other space industry organizations. And I would be like, oh, thank God we moved here. We'd have to fly out here like every week just to see these rocket launches. So that was a really cool experience. And yeah, that was just kind of how we lived life. It was always about doing what we wanted to do and not wait for it. And that was a keen reason why we decided to move to the beach, because I think that so many people have this dream of, like, one day I want to live XYZ, right? And we were like, let's just do it. Like, why not start now? And so at the end of the day, like, when I look back at his life and our life together, like, we knew that we had done everything that we've always wanted to do. And we were also on the verge of having our son. So he was born 2 weeks before my husband passed. And that was, we'll get into that interview. But so we were, we had just come back from our baby moon, and we did a 12-week Greece, or 12 weeks, I wish 12 weeks, 12-day Greece cruise. And I got to spend time with my godparents and go on this amazing cruise ship and see all these beautiful sights and really just enjoy and soak in life and have literally the time of our life. And that's what we did. Then about 3 weeks later, we got home and, back to daily routines and that kind of stuff. and he had just come home from like a early morning flight. And because he had so much time off for the vacation, he had to have like a more intense schedule when we had got back to kind of make up for the time that he had taken off. And so his schedule was unusual, and he was going in very early, 4 o'clock show times, that kind of stuff. And so one day he'd come home after work, and it was maybe around like noon or 1. He already flew across the country by then and came back home. And so then he started to work out. He was really big into fitness and stuff, and always ate well, very disciplined, very by the book. Like, that was something that I think a lot of people will say about him, just an exemplary human being. But anyways, led by example. And so he was like, I feel kind of off. And I was like, all right, I work from home. And so I was like, well, just take a break, and like, I'll make you something to eat. And, if you still feel bad after like half an hour, like, we'll go ahead and figure it out. And so like, then he was like, hey, I still kind of don't feel good. And so I was like, all right, like, why don't you go through a checklist? Like, what did you eat today? What did you do? Like, just normal, like, conversation of like, if someone's not feeling good, start to ask them questions. And so I was like, all right, well, let me go upstairs and get you some medicine, and then maybe like your headache will go away. And he was like, I like can't see from like my right peripheral vision. And I was like, immediately like, something's wrong with your eyes. We're going to go to the doctor right away, right? And he was like, so we waited for 30 minutes. And then I was like, all right, let me go get the medicine, and then we'll go head over to like, the urgent care and see, or to the emergency room and see what happens. And as I was proceeding to go upstairs, all I hear is this bang on the wall and everything's shattering. And so I run back downstairs and I find him unconscious in the bathroom. And he ended up having a seizure. And through that process, again, it's just one of those fight or flight moments. And I have no idea, like, in retrospect, of how I organized everything and just like triaged and stuff. But, like 5 minutes later, the paramedics came, took him, and he became conscious again. And all I remember praying is saying, like, God, just like keep him here so that he can meet Eli, our son. And that's all I want right now. Like, I wish he would have taken me more than anything, but I just really wanted him to be able to meet our son. And so I just was holding him, and blood everywhere in my hands and all of those things. And they came, and then they did what they needed to do, and he became conscious. And so then we just thought, again, fatigue, right? Like, change in schedule, just, all these things, maybe some stress of the baby coming and all that good stuff. And so then we went to the hospital, and then we were just like, oh my gosh, this is so stupid. Like, we could be sitting on the beach drinking right now, okay? And now we're just in this ER room, and they're going to be like, well, it was just the fall. Have a nice day, because you're young. You're 37. Like, you're in the best shape ever of your life. Like, what could be wrong, right? And so then they run some scans, and of course they were like, well, since you found HUD, like, we want to do a brain scan. And so I remember him being wheeled back, and I always find like those things fascinating, and just the things that they could tell about your brain and like which parts of them you use and stuff. And so I remember teasing him, being like, I'm so jealous that you're getting a brain scan. Like, I've always wanted one of those. And so he goes in, and then, come back out, and now we're just waiting, and we're like, what's going on? Like, can we just please leave? Like, an hour passes, and finally someone comes in and is like, hey, so, like, have you ever had cancer? And when we had first moved to Florida, he had a eraser-sized mole on his back that was melanoma. We followed all the protocols and procedures. He would go and get yearly blood routines, all of the things, right? Like, very, very diligent again, and proactive on that front. And so we were like, yeah, but we got that taken care of. Like, why are you asking us? Like, next question. Like, we want to go to the beach now. Mm-hmm. And they were like, so you have 2 big masses in your brain that we believe are cancer related, as well as some other nodules that are in your chest. And so we want to do a biopsy. And we were like, and just when you get that news, right, your whole entire life flashes before you, and you're like, what? How? Why? We did everything. Like, what more could we have done? And I will say that for me, I'm a huge proponent on being a self-advocate for your own health. And through this whole experience, I will say that anyone who is experiencing a loved one going through cancer, highly push for a PET scan, and highly push to try and go to a organization that specializes in cancer. So we were fortunate enough to be able to get into Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville, and the staff there was just the most incredible human beings here on earth, and we're just so grateful for them even till this day. But so those are my two pieces of answer, that piece of it. But so then we went down that road, and a week later ended up back at the hospital, and that's when we had got brought into that lovely family room that they didn't tell you all the bad news to. And he said, I know you have your appointment next week to follow up on your PET scan, but I was able to pull it and read it, and unfortunately it has metastasized across your entire body, and you have stage 4 cancer. That was the start of our journey from there. So at that time, I think Eli was 7 months, so very close to the due date, maybe 6 months. And so we were like, all right, we got to do what we got to do to get to Eli and take care of you. And again, aviation being my husband's passion and love, he's like, I got to figure out what I need to do so I can start flying again. And so we just raced full speed, and I was blessed with having a manager who unfortunately is also a young widow, and his partner passed through cancer. And so, as soon as I called him, he was like, what do you need? Here's how I wish people handled it for me. And I mean, that was probably one of the biggest blessings ever, is being able to have that time and that space and that support from work as well. Because if I didn't have those 4 months that I was able to truly have a really great balance of, and being there at the hospital with Bryce, I wouldn't have been able to have the most amazing last 4 months of his life with him. So I'm really, really thankful and grateful for that, because I know so many people don't get that, and it is sudden. And again, how you kind of said, trying to find the bright side of those things. And so that's that. Fast forward, lots of clinical stuff, lots of hospital rooms, lots of hoping that you're going to get out of that ICU, and then you do. And ICU people being multiple times, right? They were like, why are you here? He's like, I don't know why I'm here. Apparently I have stage 4 cancer, but I'm trying to work out right now. So he was just so disciplined. And I used to stick these Post-it notes of affirmation up on his mirror, try and write affirmations every day for him. And I told him, I was like, you need to start doing them. He was like, that's your thing, have fun. And he wrote one. And the only one that he wrote, which I have in a frame on my, mirror still to this day, and it says willpower. And he just had the will to live, and he wanted to make it to see Eli. And that was the most incredible, best day. I don't know how your husband passed, but, with lots of cancer medications comes a lot of, what are those things, when you take medicine and then it has negative impact, side effects, lots of side effects, right? And so he was on the cancer med, very high dosages of different medications the day that our son was born, but he was fully present and fully himself. And for that, I thank God every single day for that, because that was the best day. My son was born the day after my birthday, so it was the best birthday gift ever. And definitely not what I pictured, right? We got a hotel, and I was like, okay, the baby's here, we're all safe. The baby and I are going to sleep. Go back to the hotel because you need to get your rest because of all the high dosages of medication. And rest was very important going to cancer and treatment stuff. And so I remember him walking down the hall of the hospital room, and I'm just there by myself with a baby. What the heck? Never in my life would I picture that this would have been it. And we had a long fertility journey as well. So it was 7 years that we had went through infertility and treatments and all of that stuff to finally get our miracle baby. And 2 weeks later, he passed away, but he got to be there for those 2 weeks and hold his son. Time paused for sure then. We were just in pure bliss. And so we had a birth photographer, which was really exciting. So all of them are captured, and I can't wait to tell Eli the story of the day that he was born and just how much love was in that room. So that's all that matters. And that, I think, has been the main thing that has continued carrying me through this journey as well. There's this quote that I love, and it says, life has to end, but love doesn't. And I try and remind myself about that every single day, because I love him so much, and I always will. I have a little heart here on my arm, a little tattoo that he drew the heart of. And, on my really hard days, I just look down. I remember how much love he had for life, for me, for job, for aviation, for our son, for our family. And so that's what carries me through. Thank you for letting me share.
Of course. Thank you for sharing that with me. A quote that I really appreciate, and I'm going to get it wrong, but grief is just love with no place to go.
Yes, for sure. No
Hmm.
place, because the place is that you want to be with them. You
Yeah.
didn't want this to ever happen. Nobody wants this to happen. And I think it's really interesting too, like once you become a widow, you realize you do some research, right? And the average widow age is 59 years old. And that's really young compared to what I think most people think. Being a young widow, I think, is really hard. And I can't say what it's like to be a widow in your 70s, 80s, all of that. And even that crushes me when I hear other people, we were married for 50 years. And I'm like, oh, straight, straight cut to my heart. Like, we were married for 13 beautiful years, which some people never even get to be married or find the love of their life. And so I hold that with such high appreciation and gratitude and value. And my dream already came true in this world. And I hear that and I'm like, oh, like, Rockstar rude, but like, I'm really glad you died at 13 because like, I don't even know what would happen if you died at 50, right? Like, I like, oh my God. And
Yeah.
so, yeah. So again, it's crazy. And,
Wow.
everybody, I think what's very interesting. Oh, I never even told you this quote that my grandma told me. So my
Yeah.
grandma, so after he passed, it was really hard. And the only thing that would reground me or focus me is reminding myself that he was sick and that I wouldn't want him to still be here and be sick. Because when like, there's so many things I feel like they don't tell you about an illness, right? That you don't, unless you're experiencing it firsthand, like, and you're in the middle of the night sleeping, like, be able to sleep at night in a peaceful, quiet home, knowing that nobody is sick, knowing that you might not need to call the ambulance right away, that you don't need to set up a whole station before going to bed, like, everything is beyond priceless and just something that I think we take for granted every single day because that was kind of what happened after he got diagnosed, right? Like, okay, let's go through our nightly checklist. Like, what are we going to do in case of this emergency? What are we going to do in case of that emergency? Or having, these relentless chills and night sweats and like not being able to help him and no medication is going to help him or, vomiting in the middle of the night or just so many other things that happen with,
Hmm.
how brutal cancer is. And I wasn't prepared because I didn't know anybody who had gone through that. And so, as much as I'd want him here till this day, I would never want anybody that I love to be in that pain and suffering. And so, that was, what kept me being like, okay. And my mind, the first, I'd say 6 to, 8 months, like, would forget that he was sick. And I remember telling my therapist, like, I don't understand, like, how did I just go through 3 excruciating hours of pain and suffering, reliving these moments, and just like couldn't pick myself off of the ground and couldn't use any coping tools, anything. And then finally, like, it took me calling my mom and her being like, I love you, but you have to remember that he was sick. And I was like, what did you just say? Like, it was brand new news to my mind.
Yeah.
And she was like, he was sick. And I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. And she would remind me, remember this, remember that. And I was like, oh, yeah, I didn't remember any of that in those past 3 hours, Mom. And my therapist said it's because he was so much more than just that sickness. It was such a small time span compared to his whole life. And that's what our minds do, right? Is they don't remember that, like, at least for mine, I'm like, get away, as far away as possible, please. And I'm over here wondering, why am I so sad and depressed? Like, oh, I don't know, his
Oh,
husband just
right.
died. Like, oh, did he? He's not coming home. Are you sure? Like, am I being punked over here? When is Ashton Kutcher going to come
Right.
out?
Like, this is all a joke. Like,
That's very common for sure.
yeah, no, I remember after my husband died, like, it was some kind of infection that spread to his heart. And so he just got really sick really fast. And, like, he was waiting for our good insurance. So, like, he
Hmm.
refused to go to the hospital. But I remember standing in the parking garage, like, after he had passed and just being like, now what? Do I go
Yeah.
home? That's
What
silly.
do I do?
Like,
Yeah.
why would I go home? Like, Yeah, and I think one of the things we forget about it is how much it affects just your baseline of like where you're at, where it's like your baseline, maybe it was up here, but now it's like down here because you're dealing
Yeah.
with a catastrophe.
Yeah, anything with that was one of the things that took me a really long time, probably 4 or 5 months, finally, like wrap my head around is that you're not starting every day at the starting line. You're starting well behind the starting line. And if you can at least make it to the starting line, then that's progress. You can brush your teeth in the morning. You could get out of bed. If you got dressed, if you ate, like, again, those basics, right? Like, drop off because we're not at the starting line. We're well behind the starting line, just trying to get to that starting line. And so giving ourselves grace is the hardest thing I think possible, and remembering that you're not even at that starting line because again, you get so accustomed to what our routine is or what that day to day is, and then all of a sudden when that isn't that way, you think something's wrong with you, you're broken, and you're not. This experience is a tough one of the toughest ones that anyone can go through because it's not just one variable of your life that changes, but it's the entire package. It's the other half, literally, and it's the half of you too. Like a lot of people say, and I feel this way, but I died that day too. And so I think that is what I had to like finally come to the conclusion that it was like, no, you're not even at the starting line. Like you're way behind. So let's just try and get there. And then one day at a time, and sometimes one day is even too hard, then you take that second by second and you just focus on getting through that day. And it passes just like everything else. And the sun still turns. It's just mind boggling. How is the world still existing? Because it's just a week goes by and it feels like it's maybe an hour. And sometimes a week goes by and it feels like it was 25 years. And you're just like, that was the longest day ever. And I still have those days. And I think that you're always going to still have them because you're always going to still have that love.
How long has it been now?
About a year and a half. And so October 14th is the date that I will always remember.
That's my wedding anniversary.
And that's life, right? It's like the date can hold so many things. A beautiful day, such as an anniversary, and a death date as well. And that was really a unique perspective, was multiple times I was sending in simultaneously to different organizations a birth certificate and a death certificate. I remind myself that's not normal. Or just the other day when I did my taxes, the death certificate was just on the floor in my closet, and I was just like, I don't think that that's normal, Jerrica, to just walk into your closet and just have a death certificate just chilling on your grass. I'm like, I should probably like move that and put it away. And I'm like, but what's normal now anyways, right? Like,
Exactly.
is
What
it
is
really
normal?
normal? And I think that that's been the most interesting part being this far out now is I kind of keep waiting for like, one, this shoe to drop, right? Or two, like trying to figure out because you are such a different person and maybe there's sometimes less that don't change, but like your whole perspective in life changes and it's almost a very lifting thing that the worst thing possible to you has ever happened. So, and you've survived this many days and that, okay, this bad thing happened, but like, cool, like, and I'm almost waiting for like, what is going to be that thing that shakes me next? Because I have noticed that so many things that maybe I had an opinion on or bothered me or whatever, like just don't faze me, and rightfully so too, in my opinion. I'm like, oh yeah, like that would have bothered me, but like there's a lot more other things happening in the world. So
I like to call it the dead husband scale. And like on a scale of 1 to dead husband, how bad is it? And most things are like
I
a
love
2,
that. I've
you
never
know.
heard that. That is so great. Thank you for that advice. Like that is so awesome.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
gonna start
welcome.
using that
Like,
for sure.
and like, honestly, I feel like the worst it's gotten has been like a 7. Like, it was
Yeah.
bad, but you know, was it dead husband bad? No.
No. I love that. And speaking of advice, I was thinking before this podcast, like, what advice I want to give people? And I was like, 2 things. Wear waterproof mascara for the rest of your life going forward. I definitely have done that, and I think that that's been a saving grace. to carry tissue boxes, you guys. Carry around a roll of toilet paper, which I literally have here right now. And I don't know how many times I've had a roll of toilet paper just in my purse, in my car. That's just becomes my normal life. And yeah. And then I actually had a friend today who was like, I'd go out when it's raining because then people can't see your teeth. And I was like, how come you didn't tell me this advice earlier? That's great advice.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, I think that those are kind of like my little secret back pocket tips that
Mhm.
that have carried me through. So
How has been the experience of raising your son Ben, while going through this grief process? Because those are two very intense, very stressful things happening at the same time. I mean, stressful, beautiful, but also, like, I
hmm
imagine having a newborn is stressful.
yeah, I think that the hardest thing, and this baby goes into grief, doesn't go into grief. I don't know. And so that's been really hard is to define, is this because my husband died, feeling, process thought, or is this because I'm a new mom, a new parent, feeling, process thought, right? And a lot of those really kind of collide together. If you look at people who have had postpartum, they have depression. They have a difficult time connecting with their newborn. So am I having a difficult time connecting to my newborn? Is it because my husband died, or is it also because like I am depressed, which I know is because my husband died? And so I think that what I've kind of concluded with all of it is that one, I had to surround myself around other widows because that is where I found the most support and felt most commonality. But then when I kind of started to look around in the community and realize that there's so many other people that are still experiencing a lot of these same feelings and having to recreate their life whether they want it to or not. And so there's a lot of other contacts, a lot of like other resources, right, that I can lean into. Like there are single moms out there. I like to say I'm a solo mom, right? But there are a lot of communities that help you figure out how do you navigate that on your own. Or, people who go through divorce and how do you like still take care of your child and manage his finances and all of these other components that kind of occur throughout that experience as well. I think once you start to broaden that scope of research, then you realize that there's a lot of tools and resources out there. And then as far as raising him, like, I mean, I just have a really great family and great friends and community, and I've been really, really fortunate with that. And I think though the hardest part for me that I feel, I don't want to say guilt about, but like I still don't know how to process it. So maybe somebody on this podcast can tell others on how to process this particular piece, but it's that still feeling so alone at night when your pillow hits the bed. How is it that you have another human being in that house with you? Granted, yes, it's a 1-year-old who is still growing and developing and is very much needing you, but like, or how is it that your, parents are there and some people don't even have parents and are there to support you, or all of these dynamics, right? And you're not alone, but when you shared life so closely with somebody and that person was your other half and literally like to pick up right where you left off of because you were married for 13 years and had an exceptional marriage, like it still feels really hard and it still feels really lonely and that consumes you. So I think that's been the hardest part is the consumption of the grief to then have to still go get up and take care of a child, get up and go to work because you now need to financially like support this child, get up and like just continue to live when, let's be honest, that's absolutely the last thing that you want to be doing in those early days and you just don't get a choice. And so I hate when people are like, oh, you're so strong, or like, well, what choice do I have? Like, oh, thanks, like,
Mm-hmm.
or, well, he's in a better place. And you're like, is that true? Like, really? Because I think the better place would be right here next to me, thanks. Or, everything happens for a reason. Like, really? Well, let me talk to whoever decides these reasons because I would like to talk about this timeline. Like, why would you give me a child and then take away my husband and think that I'm just fully capable of, like, raising this child? I will say I did find one thing unique, and I would love to hear Dad's perspective. But I think that people look at females, right, as nurturing and just knows how to be a mom and you got this, you're the mom. And I was like, no, my child needs a family. Like that's fine if that's people's perspectives, right? But that was not our intention. That was never our intention, was to raise our child individually or alone. Like we wanted that true core nuclear family. And so I think because I was the mom, everyone was like, oh, you got this. You're the mom. Like baby needs mom. Like when I hear baby needs mom, like I lose it because no, baby needs dad too. Baby needs not just mom. I just, my whole entire life just shattered. My whole entire life just disappeared. And to be fair, I've only been a mom for 2 weeks. So I don't think I'm a mom right now, you guys. Like, I'm literally a person who just lost their 13 years of their life and got handed 2 weeks of here, chaos, and now figure this out. Because you're the mom and you got this. And so that I think was the hardest part for sure.
Yeah, and I think, people are so well intentioned when they say things like, you're so brave and he's in a better place. And oh, there was one that came to my mind just a moment ago. God never hands you more than you can handle. And I'm like, fuck that. Of course he does.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he
Yeah,
didn't
I had a
check
real
with
hard
me.
time with that. And I'd always been a very faithful person, a person of faith, and I went through that tremendously through infertility and through, the cancer diagnosis. And I think that was the hard part is everyone thought he was going to beat it for sure. And I think about that all the time. Like, was the prayer answered? And it was, because I didn't want him to be in pain and suffering. And so is it the answer that I wanted? Absolutely not. But is he in pain and suffering now? No, he's not. And so that's what carries me through. And I keep wanting to tell you about my grandma. So my grandma told me, and again, I know that sounded a little harsh earlier of just like being the mom and figuring it out. And yes, I have figured that out. But again, it couldn't be without the support and love and grace of everyone around me and my community and that kind of stuff. So, and I know that it's not going to be like this forever. And that's what I keep reminding myself to get past this season. And we talked about it too before, my husband and I, is that we would want the shoes or the roles were reversed, right? Like, I'd want him to live again. I'd want him to love again. I'd want him to like still move forward with living out that dream of having a family and all of those fun things. And it might look different than anything you've ever imagined, but I would want that. And I know he wants that for me. So that was really nice that we got to, because again, some people are so sudden and don't get time for preparation. And so I feel so blessed that we did get time for preparation and stuff and have those hard conversations. So, okay, back to my grandma, because this is going to last all the way to like 1 minute left. She said that he was a conqueror, and that was why he passed, because he conquered everything that he wanted to hear in life. And I truly do believe that. And I think that that's also really beautiful. And you might have seen this one thing online where it was like, maybe he wasn't supposed to be my forever, but I was his forever. And that alone is just so rewarding and so like something so special that no one's ever going to get to take away. And I really love that. So
I feel like part of, at least for me, like part of my job as the widow has been to honor, like to find ways to continue to honor like his memory. So we were actually only married 80 days when he passed. Definitely not how I was
we were also
expecting.
together for like 18 years. So that was like
Yeah.
another thing. Like, and for our
Yeah.
10-year anniversary, we had like this aviation scholarship created. And actually,
Oh,
like, that's crazy too, because this year would be our 15-year wedding anniversary. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, we did that 5 years ago. And to your point, like, how do I honor those things that were so meaningful to us? So I'd love to hear how you honor your husband in some ways.
yeah. Well, I mean, this is part of it. Doing this podcast, I think,
Yeah.
is part of it. Like after he died, like he had a lot of stuff. He just had a lot of like just stuff. He was a guitarist. He had all of these guitars. He had a bunch of like comic books. He had like all of these like action figures, and I was like, what am I gonna do? I don't want any of this. So it ended up being like a lot of like giving those things to like his friends, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
making sure, like, holding space for their grief, you know. I travel a lot. Our anniversary, I always travel.
Hmm.
And like, and I actually have, so I have his ashes in a whiskey bottle, and I've got my little travel. This is my travel Derek.
Aw.
Um, and so, like, you know, one of the things that we love doing is like traveling and seeing the world together. And so, like, I take him
You
around the
still get to
world.
do that.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. That's incredible. That's great. So I just looked at my notes, but I do want to go back to a few things from just like
Sure.
being a mom and how to handle that, being a solo parent. And
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, one of the non-negotiables is definitely self-care. I've made that a priority. I was able to work with my organization. I know not all organizations are this great, but to be able to take a paid day off, right? Like once a week for the first so many days and or months, right? Because I needed that for mental health days where I was able to have childcare during the weekday for my child, but still be able to take that full day to maybe not get out of bed, right? And to go to therapy, to go to different doctor's appointments. I did go on antidepressants. I'm a huge component of being able to get help wherever you need that and however you need that. No judgment. And you, like, at the end of the day, I realized, like, do what you need to do for yourself. And it's kind of just like the same with anything else, right? Within a marriage and whatever. If they're not paying your bills, then their opinion doesn't matter. Like, yes, take it, hear it, all those things, but you have to do what you have to do for yourself. And so self-care for me is a non-negotiable. In addition to trying to figure out how can you outsource, that was some other good advice, like outsource wherever you can, at least for the first, few years till you're able to get back to that starting line. And again, have no shame in that because something tragic did happen to you, something life changing happened to you, and those feelings are valid. And just being able to, I think, be vulnerable about it and just really express that allows people to know where you're at and where they can meet you at. And if they can't participate, that's completely fine too. But and just be very clear, I think, too, on like what your ask and your need is, because if people can't help you, they will. If they can't, then that's fine too. But I did find that being vulnerable and open, I think, connects us, right? And if it could help just one person, I think that that's what makes us all human and brings us together. And it's all of us are experiencing something. And so whether that's depression, anxiety, stress, overwhelmingness, and it's not exclusive to just somebody who's going through grief, right? Those are things that are occurring for anything that's happening in life for each person's individual traumatic issue. And so just being able to be open and think about that really leads to great dialogue and conversation. Kind of how you said, like, I kill small talk like very quickly.
Oh yeah, just like that.
So yeah, so, uh-huh. I think you were talking about one of the ways that you are trying to honor your husband, right? Is by, what was his name, by the way?
Derek.
How you're honoring Derek, right, is through this podcast and through other ways. And so it's really trying to figure out how or where can you put that grief, right? And so one of the things that I've been working on is trying to change our bereavement policy at my company, how I was telling you about earlier. That has just been very eye-opening, and hearing different TED Talks and podcasts and all of that really just puts things, I think, into context, is that we want to make sure that our loved ones are taken care of when we pass away. What can we do now to be able to do that? Getting my trust and will set up for my son was very important right after he passed, because heaven forbid anything happens to me, like, I want to make sure that my son is set. Or, what kind of experience do I want anyone else that's going through this to have, when their parents pass away or somebody else that's very significant to them that is life changing. I don't want them to just have 4 days, right? Like, I mean, there's clearly no amount of days that are going to be long enough, but I would want them to be able to have support. And so if anyone is looking to drive that change, there are organizations that are already doing that. A lot of the Fortune 500 companies, there's this amazing article about one of the executives at Johnson & Johnson who went through that experience. He lost his son unexpectedly, and as a high-level, senior executive, went to go and figure out how many days of leave do I have to take care of these matters. And he found out he had 4 days and said, that's really embarrassing that this is all that we're offering our employees. And how do we change that? And so Johnson & Johnson has made that change, and they were able to have now 30 days. And a lot of organizations I do believe are trying to move forward to at least, 2 weeks, if not more. And I think that that's, again, where is that enough? But it's something, right? And I think that being able to allow your employees time to process or gather their thoughts or even take it in increments, because as we know, the first 2 days are just a blur, or the first X amount of days are just a blur. Like, maybe I need just those days off, or maybe I need to save 5 days to plan this service, and I already know I'm going to be a hot mess after that. So I don't want to come to work the next week after that, right? Like, I just want to sit in my little cocoon and hide away from the world, because that was the hardest thing ever. And so I think just having a flexible policy is really important, and being able to offer as many days paid or even unpaid, like, because again, there's not really a price to put on your mental health and your sanity. And I know that not all positions have the benefit for that, or even the flexibility to maybe work from home instead, or just really work and support your employees as much as we can. I think would be great. And some statistics I just wanted to pull up really quick from some of the research that I did, right, is that, so there are some organizations, right, that are definitely coming up with unlimited PTO, which I think is great, and allowing their employees to use that. Mercer, who is a insurance broker, they created a survey that's called Moments That Matters, and it shows that 35% of large organizations plan to enhance their bereavement policy within the next 2 years. Also, some of the statistics were very interesting, that it takes around 540 hours post-loss to manage affairs, as well as families are spending 12.5 months on average trying to resolve any of the financial matters and still gathering the rest of the information. So one of the hard things with this is that it is not a federal regulated policy, unlike FMLA or maternity leave and things like that, which is why there's no additional push. And so I think we need to continue to be champions and try and drive that change. But that's enough of my soapbox.
Oh, awesome. No, I love it. I love it.
And we're hoping to get those results by the end of the next few months. And I hope that I get the opportunity to get to say that I got to make that change. So.
Nice. Could you email me those
Sure.
organizations? Just because then I can put them in the show notes and all
Yep.
that.
And if anyone wants to reach out, they definitely can. But I'll give you the briefing summary that I had created for it. So.
Awesome. Thank you. So we are coming towards the end of our time. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you would like to discuss?
I don't think so, but I guess I just want to give people hope and encouragement. And I know it feels like it's never going to change. I still, again, like I've said to this day, I am actually curious, like, since you are a lot further out, 8 years later, but one of the things that I realized is that certain things may trigger me to feel instantly the same amount of pain and the same, like, overwhelmingness of me of, like, the moment that he died. Like, do you still feel that way after 8 years ever?
Very rarely. And that's one of the weird things about grief is I feel like it doesn't really exist within normal time, especially the farther out you go. So, like, it does still happen, but not with the same frequency that it used to.
Yeah, and I think that, as cliche as that sounds, right, one of the things that I've realized is that I do think that time, unfortunately, is what continues to move us forward. I mean, mentally, emotionally, all of those things as well. And I think that you do have to have a choice too of, do I want to move forward, not forget, not let go of that, anything, but do I want to go ahead and take that next step? And I remember being very clear and kind of going back to, you need to do what's right for you. And by my family, like, I do not want to be happy right now. And I'm completely fine not being happy right now. That is not where I want to be. That is not my goal. That is not my aspiration. It's like nothing at all. I want zero happiness right now. I just want to be in the mud. I want to be in the muck, be in the grief, all of the things. And yes, it takes the same amount of energy, but it is just a choice that I wanted. I did not want to move forward at all. And I was very clear with that. And then when I did decide to, then I said, okay, like, how are we going to slowly do this? How are we going to do it? I think it's also important to think about how can you move forward, but in a sustainable way, right? Not too fast, not too slow. Like, you're going to have this really hard ping pong balance and all of that. Like, I just talked to my manager today and was like, I feel like I'm throwing spaghetti on the wall right now and seeing what sticks. Like, he's like, I went through my spaghetti phase. And so, I'm still trying to navigate it. But again, energy is energy. And so we can pour the same amount of energy into positive or to accept and be okay that we're in a moment right now too. And that's okay too. So I think that was just something I really wanted to share too.
So one last question. Do you have any perks of being a widow you'd like to share?
Yeah, so I know this maybe sounds bad, but this is, I think, maybe really good information because I didn't know. But my son collects Social Security from my husband, and that was something that I didn't know that was out there until my cousin told me about it because she had a friend who was a young widow and already went through that path. And that has been tremendously helpful because, as you know, not only do we lose somebody, but most of the time we also lose half of our financials. And so being able to raise a child, that certainly does help raising them alone. And so that, I think, was just something that was a blessing in disguise, or a perk of being a widow. And then, like they say, there's no amount of money, though, that is going to be worth somebody, but it certainly does help with the day-to-day. And I think that I'm really grateful because there's so many different secondary losses. I think I saw that on your listings of topics, but I personally did not have to go through any of those secondary losses for the most part, even to the point where, like, it sounds so bad, but he was a pilot, so he was gone frequently, right? So, like, sleeping alone, like, wasn't a secondary challenge for me. Now it was a secondary challenge is like, why are you not coming back from this trip? And my mind continuously thinking like he was on a trip for a very long time. I think that was in its own weird secondary like challenge. But so I think that just the financial component of it, I feel very fortunate, was not a secondary challenge, and that we were able to still stay in our home. And even that, do changes in your home if you have to. Again, do what is working for you. I redid the living room. I redid my bedroom. I remember walking around my house, and my other friend who's a widow after me, I told him, I said, I just walk around the house, and if it makes me sad, I can't, because I cannot it's not aligning with the direction that I'm trying to go. It's not that I don't love him or that I don't love, this and that around the house. It's that it is so painful it paralyzes me that when I see X, Y, Z. And there's other things that, like, I still have that I'm like, I'm never moving that. And if anybody did it near it, touches it, looks at it, breathes at it, like, I will, like, fight to the end about this. And I don't want to change it, so I'm not going to, right? Because that brings me happiness, joy, love, and still, like, those good feelings. So you can't experience the good feelings, like Erica says, without bad. It's unfortunately true. So
Awesome.
Try and focus on the good ones, and when you have those, hold tight to the good.
I agree. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Fantastic. Well, I hope that we continue the dialogue in a separate conversation, just you and I. And thank you for reaching out, and thank you for helping chart the path going forward too.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you are interested in being on the podcast, please email me at avalon@perksofbeingawidow.com, or you can find me on social media on Instagram at perksofbeingawidow. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.